Brian Mudd Show is on News Radio 610 WIOD.
Todd Furniss, the author of the 60% Solution, Rethinking Healthcare, joining us once again. So Todd, looks like some of the insurance companies are thinking about crafting different types of schedules, or perhaps companies as well, for those who are vaccinated versus unvaccinated. What's it looking like here?
Well, there's certainly, good morning, and certainly there's precedent for this because other forms of behavior and reluctance is expressed in higher premiums from time to time. But it's troubling for a whole bunch of reasons because at the end of the day, what's being implemented here is another form of encouragement, in air quotes, to get the vaccine, when without really looking beyond the central issue of whether or not they've had the vaccine and asking the questions, why not? So, for example, is it a woman who is of childbearing years, or have they already had COVID, therefore they already have the antibodies? And you're seeing this kind of rote application of the vaccine mandate to people who shouldn't get a vaccine or don't need the vaccine. It doesn't matter. They're just saying you have to have it anyway. So the question then obtains, well, if you haven't had the vaccine but you don't need the vaccine, you have to pay the increase in the premium. So it's a whole conundrum. It's a mixed bag of good and bad news in that one statement.
Yeah, so Todd, we've seen a number of companies and a number of policies reflect differences, for example, for people who smoke. And in recent years, increasingly, you have companies that might have a wellness plan. In other words, if you engage in these good behaviors, rather than making them punitive on the front end, we'll just say that you get discounted by this much if you engage in our wellness program, which, among other things, encourages, not smoking and getting exercise and whatever else might be packaged in. So this is something, though, that it sounds like it's going to be that much more specific to where insurance companies, companies themselves that will have employer-sponsored coverage, they're crafty policy to say, hey, if you're not vaccinated, you're going to be paying this much more for insurance.
Well, and this is subtle, but it's important. In each of those instances, there is a different set of circumstances, meaning in this instance, somebody's not taking an affirmative action, meaning they're electing not to get the vaccine, which is invasive. It goes into your skin. And everything that goes into your skin either runs the risk of infection or has other problems, potential problems associated with it. So it's a little bit different, but you're pulling on an important thread there, which is where does that end? So, for example, I note with interest that there's no apparent penalty if the individual is obese. Why is that the case? And the wellness program is interesting, but if you were to try and draw a better analogy, you'd say, well, the fact that the person hasn't gone on a diet is analogous to the fact that the person hasn't gotten the vaccine. So the negative action, meaning the refusal to do that, causes increased costs for the entire system, whether it's obesity or not getting the vaccination. But in the vaccination instance, it's actually different because in that instance, you could have already had the disease, and therefore you have antibodies, so you don't need the vaccination. So it's more complicated than simply, have you done it or have you not.
Well, and Todd, kind of to the point, and you briefly touched on this. I mean, my mom is certainly not working, but I just use her example because there are people that fall in some of these exceptions, even outside of a religious exemption. My mom has a rare blood disease. She intended on getting vaccinated, but her doctor told her flat out she absolutely should not. That she is allergic to many of the principles and vaccines. It goes back before this. She's not had a flu vaccine since the 1960s. Because she was found to have problems with vaccinations. So is somebody in my mom's situation, do they just are going to be stuck having to pay more? Or will that be thoughtfully adhered to?
Well, that's the implicit threat in the news stories that are coming out. And, to be clear, these news stories are floated to see what the public reaction is going to be. And if it's too negative, then, of course, the insurance companies won't do it, and if it's not negative enough, then they will do it. But your mom's example is analogous to my daughter's example. My daughter just had a baby, I'm pleased to report, and mom and baby are both healthy, but she was advised by the doctor not to get the vaccine. Now, partly because when she was pregnant, they didn't have enough data, and so there was anxiety around that. But we still don't have enough data, and so the idea that you're going to blanket the insureds who are covered by insurance are with a new penalty in the form of an increased charge for those who are not vaccinated. To me, it seems pretty heavy-handed. It's certainly their precedence for doing this. It doesn't mean that they can't. But at the end of the day, nobody can be certain with regard to how much money is going to be the amount of the increased charge, and here's why. The way the premiums are established is by virtue of a negotiation not with any insurance company and an employer. It's between the insurance company and the State Department of Insurance in most states. So the companies seldom get involved. So what happens is the company may add an additional penalty on top of that, which the insurance company might charge, because the companies themselves bear the first risk for most of these policies. So your employer may elect to put a penalty on you if you've not gotten vaccinated, which may or may not be in addition to whatever penalty the insurance company puts on you.
Good times. Todd Furniss, the author of the 60% Solution, Rethinking Healthcare. Appreciate the explanation. It's good information.